Welcome to Subway Sports Talk.
Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go, Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in to SST on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, YouTube, occasionally live on Twitter. Not right now, but occasionally live on Twitter. We're starting to roll that out, as well as on YouTube. Joining me today, not a newbie to Subway Sports Talk. He's been on the show a couple times. Happy to be back in the booth recording with this one. Mike Didino. You can find him on all the social medias. Look up Mike Didino, ripping off fantasy takes, gambling takes, all sorts of sports stuff. Mike, what's up, man?
What's up, Pete? I was actually thinking as that song played, I couldn't figure out what song it was for a minute, but then it's A$AP Rocky, right?
Yep. One Train.
One Train. That's a great song. I haven't heard that one in a minute.
It's one of the epic songs. I feel like we're a similar age. Like, we were probably in our late teens when that song came out, mid-late teens. And
it might have been
every big artist on it. Yeah, like every big artist was on it, and it was epic. And it's called One Train, and this is Subway Sports. It's a perfect synergy. A$AP
I didn't
Rocky.
even put that together.
And he's a New York guy, so it's like everything, everything that we need in life, you know, and everything we
song.
It is, and everything else we need in life, Mike. Maybe actually not anything that we need in life is New York football. It's the opposite of what we need in life because they're just giving people anxiety. Nobody knows what's good and bad. Nobody knows up from down when it comes to the Giants and the Jets. So we're obviously going to talk about the retaining of Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, John Mara's comments a little bit. Also in Jets world, we have Aaron Rodgers at the helm of the headlines. We have coaches from yesteryear at the headlines there. Can't wait to talk about some of the coaching candidates that the Jets are getting into and who's using the Jets, Mike Vrabel, and whatnot, what's going to happen in MetLife in general going into 2025 and beyond, because it's just seemingly a mess on both sides. And then lastly, we'll do some predictions and previews for the NFL playoffs. So the playoffs start on Saturday. Mike, quick question, though, for you. We didn't even talk about this before we started. We're going to get into Giant stuff in a hot second. All the games that we had over the last few weeks of NFL season that stretch across Christmas Day, Thursday, Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays, Mondays, you got a lot of NFL football. To you, was that an enjoyable rollout of the last few weeks, the every day seemingly an NFL game, or do you think there was some diminishing return?
Well, it's all about the money, obviously. And if the NFL is making money, I honestly, if you're going to give me football every day, I'm not going to complain.
Right.
And some of the games are bad, but if you're going to give me football every single day and the NFL is clearly making a ton of money off of it, I'm not going to complain, but more football. Is it a little bit of an overkill when you have games on – I find, some of the doubleheaders on Monday to be kind of pointless, and then you had the Saturday games, and then, you had the Christmas games. But once again, the more football, in my opinion, the better.
I just muted myself. It definitely hits when people like you and I enjoy a gamble here and there, right?
And that's exactly, and it's for the gambling, the vibes. You get the, on Christmas Day, I get to gamble, and you always find a way to gamble, but it's for the gambling, it's for the advertisers, and it's for the NFL.
Yeah, Christmas Day, me and my brother-in-law, Bankroll Jack, friend of the show, whipping up parlays, just hit one on Christmas Day. There's nothing better than that, and I kind of agree. It's like, is it too much? Probably, but is it also just right? Definitely. That's how I feel. All right, on to the football Giants, because not everything is right there. Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are returning for another year. It was a big question mark, and John Mara came out. There's a few interesting comments, Mike, that I wanted to talk about. And again, Mike Didino, Daddino, in case you were curious. Mike Didino _ on TikTok. You can find him on Twitter, the whole nine. Few interesting comments from me on John Mara. One was the playoff or bust thing. That was number one. Number two was, this is unacceptable. 3 wins is no good, but I'm retaining these guys. And then 3 was, Brian Daboll won a coach of the year a few years ago. I don't think he's lost that. That was like big picture cliff notes of what kind of John Mara was going about. Let me ask you before we dive into that, is this what you expected to happen for the New York Giants, Mike? Did you think Daboll and Schoen were returning? And then we can go into if it was a good choice or a bad choice. What did you
Well,
think?
I have to be honest. I recorded like a 15-minute monologue yesterday in which I went through the Jets and the Giants, and I said that I think I personally would fire both of them. And my reasoning is the Giants just had the most losses in their franchise history, and you're bringing these guys back. And yes, the head coach and Daboll won a Coach of the Year 3 years ago. But when you break down like all the decisions that they've made since he won that award, they got rid of Saquon, they paid Daniel Jones, they got rid of Xavier McKinney. Their drafts have been very, very underwhelming. They hit a Malik Neighbors this year, but outside of Neighbors, their drafts have been pretty underwhelming. And for me, you go 3-14, you have your worst mark in franchise history. That's it for me. You guys are both fired. Nothing personal. It's a tough business. I'm moving on.
Yeah, I think people would argue that up until this year, right? They had also the Tyrone Tracy, the Teo Johnson, a few defensive players. But again, to not disagree with you here, but just to point out, I think people are arguing like this year's draft was good. And I agree, actually. This year's draft was good. But this wasn't their first draft. And also, the strategy they employed upon themselves was due to their own past decisions. Paying Daniel Jones, letting Saquon Barkley walk. That's why they went wide receiver. That's why they went with another running back. That's why they tried to add another weapon in a tight end. And they went with defensive players because they needed that too. But they played with they laid in the bed that they made, right? Like they chose to stick with Daniel Jones. So how can we say, well, they didn't have a good quarterback, they deserve a chance to get another one? They chose to keep Daniel Jones. Does that part come into effect to you? How much do you weigh keeping Daniel Jones a few years ago after that playoff appearance into what they have in now?
It's funny because them winning that playoff game may have set the franchise back 5 or 6 years, because I always say this, I never like paying a player off of his best season, and that's what the Giants were forced to do with Daniel Jones, and it struck him right in the back. To go off of the Giants having a good draft this year, I mean, if you look at their roster, they don't have a good roster. They are, and I always like to say, where are they above league average? I don't know where they're above league average. You could argue, I'll give them the defensive line, their front seven. Yeah. At least their defensive line is above average. But outside of that, I don't think they're above league average anywhere. And that includes wide receiver when they have an all-star perennial Pro Bowler, it seems like, in Malik Neighbors. So for me, have they really hit in many drafts? I mean, you hit on the 5th, 6th pick in the draft like you should. You could say Tyrone Tracy was a good draft pick, but running backs are easy to find these days. And you let Saquon walk out the door and replace him with Tracy. So for me, you're fired.
You're fired. Like, again, you're right with the running back stuff too. How many running backs are popping up year in, year out, where it's like, oh, you know what? This guy's kind of something. This guy's good. He's pretty impressive. It happens all across the league at all times with running backs. It's just easy. But you look back at some of the other drafts, it's like, Evan Neal was one of their first big picks. And like, if Evan Neal worked out, that's another pick that is a franchise changer in ways, right? Because you can look up and down that draft and be like, all right, Kayvon Thibodeau was their first pick in 2022.
He hasn't even been good.
He hasn't been
He's
good.
Been okay.
He's been a bust for the 5 overall pick, but he hasn't been like horrible. He's pretty good. He's fine, right? Evan Neal sucking is massive. If Evan Neal was one of these Joe Alt, Penei Sewell level tackles where it's like, this is an anchor in the offense, I think that is the type of pick that is like a game changer for a franchise. And then the rest of it's like, yeah, John Michael Schmitz, he's a 2nd-round pick. He's a fine offensive lineman, but the rest of the offensive line is injured and sucks. And like, that's just not going to be good enough. Yeah, this year, people love Tyler Nubin. They love Andrew Phillips. So what? Their defense sucked anyway, right? So there needed to be some sort of recharge from this team, and a lot of people wanted it to be from Daboll and Shane. However, let me play the other side of the coin here, Mike. Yes, this draft, you can argue, was a good one. So maybe there's some momentum with the Neighbors, Teo Johnson, Tyrone Tracy, Andrew Phillips, Tyler Nubin. Now they're picking number 3. We didn't talk about the tanking stuff yet, but they're picking number 3. There's 2 quarterbacks seemingly in this draft, and the 2 teams above need quarterbacks, the Titans and the Browns. Do you see them now with this new emphasis on win now from John Mara, playoff or bust? This team has to be better and more respectable as long as I'm still the owner. Win now. Sounds like they need a quarterback. Do you think they move mountains to move up in this draft? Do you think they can go Travis Hunter and find a veteran? What is their quarterback play now?
I was talking about this with one of my buddies at work today. The Giants are in a very difficult decision because the Titans have the first pick. You could lock up, most likely, Cam Ward there. And then the Browns have the second pick. And today, the Browns just announced that Deshaun Watson had a setback in his ACL, a.k.a. we're drafting a quarterback. And even though I don't love Shedeur Sanders, and I think if he wasn't Deion's son and Colorado wasn't on every primetime game, he probably wouldn't be going second pick. And that could be a blessing in disguise. But there's a very good chance, and FanDuel tells you based on the odds, that both of the quarterbacks likely go 1-2. And the Giants now are like, whoa, well, we're going to miss out on the first two quarterbacks. Maybe we could get Travis Hunter, who's the best player in the draft. But then where do we look at for quarterback? The Giants are in a tough situation. I honestly don't know what's going to happen. You probably stay in the 3 spot, and you probably take the best player available, and then you probably sign a veteran. Maybe you bring in like a Justin Fields. Maybe you bring in a Jameis Winston. It's a tough situation. Maybe you bring in a J.J. McCarthy from the Vikings, and I have a whole take on what the Vikings should do, but there are some guys out there. But I don't think they got anybody out there that's going to push you into a playoff contender next year.
That's the big question, because now there's two opposing mindsets, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're retaining Dable and Shane to continue to try to build, but we all know it's not continuing to build. It's rebuilding. They're 3 and freaking 14. They're not continuing a build. They're still rebuilding. So how can you put on a playoff or bust, mantra, but also say, this is the guy I trust to rebuild the organization? Those two things don't seem like they possibly add up to me. Now, what about this question mark, Mike? Number 3, if it goes Cam Ward or Shedeur in any order, and now Travis Hunter sitting there at 3, is that a possible trade down spot for the Giants? Because yes, Travis Hunter might be the best player in this draft, and that means he might be sought after from a number of organizations. And if you could move down to 7, 8, 9, 10 range and grab one of the first offensive linemen off this and maybe add another pick, is that another option where you still don't have a quarterback, but at least you're accruing more assets?
First, I'm going to pose you a question. Do you remember who the Giants selected the last time that they traded down in the first round?
The last time they traded down in the first round?
It was recently. It was about 4 years ago.
I have the thing up right now, so I don't want to cheat.
Kadarius Toney.
Oh, no.
They traded down, and they took Kadarius Toney with the 20th pick in the draft, I believe.
Was that this? I don't think that was them, though. That was
the old regime, which is fine.
His face? I blocked his name out of my
Gettleman.
Yeah, Gettleman. Mm-hmm. I blocked his name out of my memory.
It's always tough to trade down because unless a team is trading up for a quarterback, that's when you get the big haul. When you have somebody that desperately needs a quarterback at that 8 to 10 range and they say, listen, we want our guy. You have your guy. Let us give you a ton of capital and we'll flip-flop. I don't know if I see a team in that 8 to 10 range that's going to give a ton of – let's just say the Jets are in that 8 to 10 range. I believe they have the 9th pick in the draft. The Jets wouldn't give up a ton of capital to get Travis Hunter. I think that the Giants are in a very, very tough position. And it's almost like fantasy football comes to mind. When you is the 3rd pick, not the worst pick in the draft, but you miss out on the quarterbacks. That's what the Giants wanted. They wanted a quarterback. Now you have to adjust.
And the adjustment is going to be the strange part because, again, Travis Hunter might be the best player in this draft, and I think every team would be excited to draft him.
And that's fine.
What is his impact year one? But maybe from a John Mara perspective, he's saying, we're going to draft this superstar receiver-cornerback combo, and we have to figure out quarterback still. Maybe you can draft someone in the 2nd round. I don't know. There's still some options out there. Maybe it's a Kirk Cousins, God forbid, right, in his 2nd year off the Achilles. I don't know what's out there. You already mentioned J.J. McCarthy. Is Travis Hunter moving the needle to help Dable and Shane keep their job? Because that's the next question. Do they now operate in desperation mode because they feel like they need to win right now to keep their jobs? And then that could even push the franchise back further down the road?
It's tough. And I was saying to my buddies the other day, with all these college prospects, man, most of them are a coin flip. And the Giants now are going to go back and watch every single snap that Travis Hunter played on both sides, on offense and defense, and say, is this the guy that we want to build our franchise around? I don't know. Travis Hunter is obviously a very popular name because of his play on the field and obviously some of the off-the-field stuff. His name is very prevalent right now. Is Travis Hunter a great player? He's a great college player. He dominated at both sides. He won the Heisman. So I guess that he's going to translate in the NFL. He's not going to play wide receiver and cornerback. That's going to be impossible to do in the NFL. But he's likely going to be a good cornerback. So yes, it does move the needle in the right direction. And there's always things you can do in free agency. The Giants are not really paying anybody right now a ton of money because they do get out of the Daniel Jones contract somewhat after this year. So they don't have a ton of they don't have really a player clogging their salary cap, so they could get creative in free agent, but it's going to come down to who is taking snaps under center, and I don't know who that is right now. Maybe they draft Milroe in round 2, Carson Beck maybe in like round 3, but I don't think you could start these guys week 1 next year. Dare I say Aaron Rodgers maybe? I don't know what the Giants do. You have to really just kind of take a shot on a veteran, and if it doesn't work, then maybe reset the quarterback position in 2 years.
So, yeah, that's Aaron Rodgers, man. Goddamn. We'll get to the Jets in a moment here. Let me give you a couple options here. And before I do, I'll say this. People think Shedeur and Cam Ward are toss-ups right now. So, obviously, Milroe, Quinn Ewers, and Carson Beck, who are the other top quarterbacks looking for second, third, fourth round draft spots, like they're super question marks, obviously, right? So, let me give you these two options here. Option 1, trade up, move a few mountains to try to go get Shedeur or Cam Ward. Option 2, Travis Hunter and insert veteran, like holdover quarterback somewhere.
I don't think that. Tennessee is not. Here's the thing: if you're Tennessee or Cleveland and you trade out of the first or second pick, and the quarterback that you were supposed to take turns out to be good, everybody's fired. Are you willing to put your job on the line, put your nuts on the table and trade out of drafting a quarterback when you clearly need a quarterback? I just don't see either of those teams trading out right now. Maybe the Browns do, just because we've seen them win games in the past, in particular, not this year, but last year. They won a playoff game with Joe Flacco. They have a good head coach. Maybe the Browns would be the one team out of the two that could trade out, but I'm not betting on it.
Yeah, and you're absolutely cooking on that front because the Browns are more likely because of the Deshaun Watson BS, but also they're on the books for him for 2 years. Stefanski needs a new quarterback. They need a new quarterback, and they could even, do the PR BS and say, hey, we drafted Shedeur Sanders. He's going to sit behind Deshaun Watson until he's ready. And just say that to make the books look okay. And then Deshaun Watson won't see the field again if Shedeur is fine. So that is the best option, but it's also not a good option for the Giants. They're not going to be able to trade up. I do agree with you there. So the Travis Hunter thing seems like the best option. I just don't know if that's moving the needle enough for Dable and Shane to keep their job. So that brings us to this part of the conversation, and then we'll get to the Jets. Obviously, the last 2 weeks of the season were playing out exactly how Giants fans didn't want them to. They win the game in Week 17, seemingly for no reason. Drew Lock has the game of his career, and they win. And then they go out in Week 18 and play horrible against all the backups in Philly and lose the game kind of like they were supposed to, in a way. Very tough to tank in the NFL, though teams still do it in ways. Also, very obvious from John Mara and Brian Dable's perspective that they do not tank. They don't do it on purpose. They don't try to do it. Players play, coaches coach, etc. And Mara was very clear. If I have a coach who I think's tanking, if I have players who I think tanking, they won't be in my organization. So we sit here in a conundrum, Mike. Tank and get the pick that can set your franchise up for good, or don't tank and be right where we are. So how can you, as an owner, sit here and spew that? And also, let me ask you like this. Do you think that was almost a handshake deal saying to Brian Dable, you better still coach your ass off. I don't care about draft position. I don't care about this or that. If you want to maintain your job, you coach to win every single week. Like, does that come into consideration here? How much are these guys even talking about the future together?
It's tough, man, because tanking might be the better decision for your future. Because if you told me right now the Giants lose that game to Indianapolis and have the first pick, like if you're a Giants fan, you'd rather have the first pick than the third pick and win and lose a meaningless game in Week 17 against the Indianapolis Colts. But it's different. If I'm on the team and I know you're tanking, I want out. Like if I'm Malik Neighbors and I'm the 6th pick in the draft, whatever, and I'm having whatever. He had one of the best rookie seasons of all time. And I see these guys are tanking. I want out. You lose the locker room that way. as a competitor, if I was a coach, if I was a GM, if I was an owner, if I was a player on a team, I want to win. That's why you play. You play to win the game. You don't play for draft spots. So as a fan, would it have been beneficial if the Giants lost that game? Yeah, obviously, but you play the game for a reason. And if you're a player and you're a coach, you want to win. And they played to win, and they won. And that's part of the game. So anybody that's like so pro tank probably has never played a competitive sport in their life.
Yeah, I saw Brees Hall tweet back to some Jets fan account.
I saw that too.
He was saying like, yo, if we won the game or lost the game, you still be complaining like SCFU, like shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, honestly, I kind of agree with that because players play, coaches coach, but fans are going to be fans, right? That's another part of it, right? If you want to say players are going to play, fans are going to be fans. And as much as I love fans, we're all fans, right? Fans are not the brightest bunch. We all want to say like, oh, fans are so tapped in. Fans know what they're doing. Fans are this. Frankly, a lot of fans don't. They really don't. They don't know. And that's why all of us are sitting here and not in the front office somewhere, right? So yes, of course we're saying, oh, it's obvious, just tank and get the pick. It's not obvious. It doesn't work like that. Obviously, it set the Giants up in a really weird spot. However, we have to now take the cards that are being dealt to the New York Giants and try to assess it. So here we are. We made our thoughts on what the Giants could or should do. And obviously, as we get closer to the draft, we'll do even more deep dives on the prospects and et cetera. But now Daboll is the coach. Joe Schoen is the GM. Brian Daboll as a coach, I tend to feel like deserves a chance to coach with a quarterback. Where they're going to get that quarterback, I don't know. However, I think there's a good coach somewhere in Brian Daboll. I do. In that sense, I'm happy he's still the coach of the team that I root for. Mike, do you agree that Brian Daboll still has good coaching in him for the New York Giants, or do you think this extra year of retention is just destined for a crash and burn?
It's a tough question. I think Daboll's a fine NFL coach. He's got one more chance. If the Giants fall flat on their face this year, he doesn't even make it to like week 5 or 6. You'll have a Robert Saleh situation when they fire him mid-year, bring an interim coach, and then they probably tank and maybe go for Arch Manning next year. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy that won Coach of the Year 3 years ago. So it's there. Like Kevin Stefanski I believe Kevin Stefanski was the Coach of the Year last year when Joe Flacco led them into the playoffs. And now they outwardly tanked it. Speaking about tanking, they tanked. They started Bailey Zappi instead of Jameis Winston. But Kevin Stefanski is also like, you're going to have bad seasons in the NFL. The NFL is just, it changes really quick. Sometimes you're on the wrong side of the ball. Sometimes you're on the right side. And I think that everything that could have went wrong for the Giants. I think Brian Daboll is a pretty good NFL coach. Can he win you games? Sure. Is he incompetent like the New York Jets whole coaching situation this year? No. He's a lot better than whatever the Jets were spinning out there every week.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment, right? There's clearly a way for Brian Daboll to be successful. The fact that he's able to create some semblance of offense with the quarterbacks that they've had, I think should be a feather in his cap, but every fan will point to, well, he and Joe Schoen put themselves into that quarterback situation. I get that, but also when they signed Daniel Jones, everybody was kind of in agreement, even though it was too much money, that was the move, that he earned the right to still be the quarterback for the next few years. And since he got that injury, obviously he was not the same moving forward as well. So I like that Daboll's getting a chance here, but I also now like this, and I think this is the positive spin on it, Mike. This year is to win games. No matter what, no matter who they draft, no matter who the quarterback is, Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen are going out there to win games. And as a fan, you don't have to watch week 1, 2, 3, 4 and say, well, we're probably not going to be good, so who really cares if we lose? Because as a Giants fan, dude, I got to say, I didn't care if they won or lost by like week 5. And that's horrible. And now we know that this year that can't happen. That's not the conversation until like week 9, 10, 11 range, right? And I do think playoff or bust this will be the last thing before we move to the Jets. Playoff or bust is the last thing. There is obviously context there, right? If they drafted Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, which looks almost impossible right now, and they went and won 7 games, but were competitive, had a positive offense, the quarterback threw for 25 touchdowns, there's an argument to be made that was progress and Daboll and Schoen should return. Same thing if they get a veteran quarterback or something like that, and there's competency and there's progress in all the other parts of the draft, that's probably still reason to believe these guys will return. The one thing that I kind of can't stand, Mike, is fans looking at Arch Manning obviously with the Manning name, and being like, well, just draft Travis Hunter, suck again next year, and pick Arch Manning #1. That sounds great. Guess what Arch Manning hasn't done yet? Played a full season of freaking college football. Like, we all believe this guy's going to be really good. Yeah, he subbed in for Quinn Ewers that one game against Georgia and looked kind of good. He hasn't done nothing yet. We don't know who's going to be the top prospect next year. It might be Arch Manning. It might be Nussmeier or whatever the hell his name is from LSU. There's so much to happen here. To think as a fan, when you hate losing this year, that you're going to sign up for it again to draft Arch Manning, who hasn't played a full game of college football yet, is asinine to me.
Yeah, I agree. Everybody wants Arch Manning. Giant fans and Jet fans are already team tank for Arch Manning next year. And you're right, he has not played a game, but he's got that last name, that sexy, sexy last name. And he was, I believe, the #1 prospect coming out of his class in high school. So there's something there. He recruited Texas, who's the top 5 team in the country all year. There's something there. You got the last name. You got the high school accolades. So wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if the Giants tanked and got Arch Manning.
Right. But again, it comes back to the idea. John Mara made it clear. He doesn't want to tank. And if he has a coach who's tanking, they're not the coach anymore. So unless you're making Brian Dable the absolute scapegoat of all scapegoats, then it's going to be another miserable season for Giants fans. And then, yeah, maybe you get a franchise quarterback next year if you don't fuck up the tank again, which is the Giants' MO, dude. I said it on the Fan last week to my buddy Al Centrone. I was producing for him. I'm like, dude, the Giants are going to win because they always win one of these dumb games late in the year to ruin their pick. The Jets do the same freaking thing. And guess who won in week 17? The Giants. And who won in week 18? The Jets. It's what
I will say, going back to all Jet fans will like scream and shout that they ruined their franchise by losing that game. And then obviously Trevor Lawrence who hasn't even been that good, but then they took Zach Wilson too. I mean, do you know who the Jets took Zach Wilson over with the second pick in the draft? Just a few guys to name them: Jamar Chase, Penny Sewell, Patrick Surtain, and Micah Parsons. Like, those are the 4 best, you could argue, the best cornerback, the best receiver, the best tackle, and the best pass rusher in the league went after you drafted. It's like, I don't want to hear all this crap. Sometimes you miss out on a quarterback, so make the right pick. Sometimes taking a quarterback is the worst thing that could happen because you get a guy that does not change your franchise and you end up wasting a first-round pick when he could have taken a Jamar Chase, a Micah Parsons, a Patrick Surtain. Tough situation.
Oh my God, Penei Sewell on a Giants or Jets team right now, you just feel amazing about it. Like, to have an offensive line that's good, I don't even know what that feels like anymore.
You don't only always have to take a quarterback, and you need a quarterback to win. I get it, and everyone's chasing like the Jaden Daniels who changes the franchise, or maybe the Bo Nix who looks like he's changing that franchise, albeit Sean Payton's terrific. But it's not. You got maybe a 50. It's a coin flip. These guys are all coin flips.
Mike Didino, P. Kennedy, right here on Subway Sports Talk. Let's talk about the New York Jets. Let's go from horrible to worse over there in Jets land. And it's kind of funny to say that the Jets are worse. And I don't think many people would argue with that. Yes, they have a more talented roster. Like, you posed the question before, what's an above average position for the Giants? And we could probably only point to the D-line. On the Jets, you can point to more things than just the D-line. They got an above average running back, 2 above average receivers. They got above average defensive players, and yet they still sucked. So who's to say? Well, here we are with the New York Jets. They don't know who their coach is going to be. They don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to come back and play quarterback for them this year. They obviously aren't in position to draft one of the top quarterbacks. So their questions are even more in the air. But we have to start with their head coaching situation. Saleh gets kicked out. Jeff Ulbrich does nothing with the rest of the season. It was even worse than Saleh somehow. And now the names are flowing and the interviews are being scheduled and names are popping up left and right, Mike. And I got to ask you about this one. Rex Ryan, who's been on ESPN for years, who hasn't been a coach for a long time, hasn't been a successful coach for an even longer time, is adamant that he is the best candidate for this job. Talking a big game about what Aaron Rodgers should do, about who should be the quarterback, and that why he's the best candidate. Do you think this blast from the past has a chance to make it work with the Jets, or is Rex Ryan an even bigger setback possibility to this franchise?
I gotta say, I've been watching sports a long time. I'm 29 years old. I've been watching sports a long time, Pete. I have never in my life seen a non-coach put himself out there as much as Rex Ryan is for a position to coach in the NFL. There is a reason that Rex Ryan has not coached in the NFL for 10 years. And I know Jeff Fan was like, we make the AFC Championship with him. And you did. And like the bar is so low that, okay, maybe you could bring Rex Ryan and try to get that magic back. But any Jet fan that really followed the team knows that he inherited the Mangini roster. And he did a good job, Rex, for a few years. But then it got tiring. He got fired. He got another chance in Buffalo, and he fell flat in his face. And then he has not coached since. There's a reason for that, because he's not a good NFL coach. And I know Jet fans want him because it's like split on him right now at 50-50. You got a handful of Jet fans saying, well, we've been so bad for so long, and the last time we made the AFC Championship, this guy was the coach, so it makes sense. And the other half of Jet fans saying, no, we want to move forward, not backwards. I am team, let's move forward and not backwards. If somebody's begging to be your head coach, that's not a good thing.
The tweet that went viral about getting Aaron Rodgers to play quarterback is like hooking up with your high school crush when she's 40 with 3 kids. Did you see that? Right?
Yeah.
So bringing back Rex Ryan to be your head coach is hooking up with the 40-year-old with 3 kids mom.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Rex Ryan is not the answer, people. I don't understand it. When John Gruden's name got brought up, I love John Gruden content. He is good at content. He's so fun, so funny, and I could watch him draw plays on a whiteboard for days. I don't need him near my franchise. I don't want him touching my franchise right now. He hasn't coached in a long time either, and his last coaching stop was abysmal. Rex Ryan's last coaching stop wasn't very good. I mean, granted, he was better in Buffalo than like falling on your face horrendous, but still never got even close to the hump, let alone over it. What are we doing here? And look around the league right now. People want to say, oh, I'm so afraid of the hot new coordinator. Half the league is hot new coordinators. All of them are. And guess what? Then other coaches are the hot new coordinators. That's what the league is. Even Dan Campbell, who everyone's in love with, who's probably similar enough to Rex Ryan, then name your other hot new coordinator. Dan Campbell came from being an assistant head coach and a tight end coach. He didn't come from ESPN. He didn't come from a network on CBS in the pregame show. Like, even the Bill Belichick stuff to me was insane this year. It's like all we did when these guys were on their last legs coaching at the NFL level was complain about their shortcomings. Rex Ryan can't figure out how to get a good offense going. Rex Ryan doesn't adapt to the new age of players. John Gruden, he doesn't know how to adapt to players. He doesn't know how to build a roster, right? Bill Belichick can't hit a draft pick to save his freaking life. Let's give him the keys to our franchise. It's ridiculous. Like, look at the other teams in the league that are in a good spot right now. You're looking at even the Carolina Panthers coach who, yeah, that roster's horrible. And guess how you feel about Dave Canales right now? Kind of good. Guess what? He might have just resurged the first overall pick's career. What was he?
Good.
A hot new coordinator. That's half the league, unless you get Andy Reid or freaking Sean Payton. Like that, they're all, Mike Tomlin, everyone else came from being a coordinator. Some people are on maybe their second head coaching job, and they damn for sure didn't spend 8 years on Get Up.
I gotta say, while I agree with mostly everything you said, I am Team Gruden.
Oh, to coach.
Yeah, I like Gruden.
I like him too. Not as my coach.
I don't want to get too into the stuff, but I mean, he really got fired because of the emails that came in about 15, 20 years ago. Whenever he was sending emails out, whatever. We don't need to get into that.
That's fair.
But Gruden didn't really necessarily get fired because of bad coaching.
True, but the Raiders weren't exactly lighting the world on fire.
No, they weren't, but they were. I mean, look at the Raiders were a lot better then than they were now. I mean, the Raiders are the laughing stock now. Talk about a team that's got nothing. They're in like the 8th or 10th pick. They got no quarterback. They got no running back. They got a good tight end and receiver, but really, outside of that, nothing much.
And they did get Josh McDaniel, who, even though he technically was a coordinator, he wasn't a hot new coordinator. He was an old recycled coordinator who obviously rode the coattails of Belichick and Brady. But yes, correct.
For me, if I'm the Jets, there's one thing I'm doing. And the hot new coordinator is fun, but if I'm a hot new coordinator, I'm not coming to the New York Jets. Why would I? I'm not going to go there to die with some guy that's basing his decisions based off his son playing Madden. Why would I go there? This is my one chance to coach. I'm not going to New York. So I'm the Jets, and I'm Woody Johnson, and my back's against the wall, and I got to make a move. I'm trading my first-round pick, and I'm getting Kyle Shanahan.
Whoa.
That's my move. And then I'm bringing back Aaron Rodgers for one more year. I'm bringing back Devontae Adams for one more year. And I'm saying, hey, man, I am all in. What is our alternative? We can get rid of Rodgers, and then who's our quarterback? We can get rid of Devontae Adams and hurt our receiver room after we just traded for him. And then we can bring in a new head coach and give him nothing. You got to go all in if you're the Jets this year. You got to bring back Rodgers. He was not great this year, but he was not terrible. And then I'm trading for Shanahan. That's it.
Wow. Now, is this something that you concocted on your own, or are you seeing rumblings of this talk?
Well, I've seen rumblings of the Vikings potentially maybe moving a first round, their head coach O'Connell for a first round pick. And,
That'd be crazy.
To me, rings a bell. Like, why not go get Kyle Shanahan? If you're the 49ers, like, you got to probably have somebody else in that building. You've had Shanahan there for a few years now. You have not won. You're coming off a bad season. You still have a lot of talent. You could pick up a first-round pick and have 2 picks in the top 15. Like, I think it makes sense for both teams. So I'm kind of building that on my own, and probably has no chance to happen. But, I think it kind of makes sense for both teams.
Now, what I find interesting about that is if there's one person sick enough as a coach to even agree to that, it could be Shanahan. Because if you're honest with the San Francisco 49ers setup right now, right? Brock Purdy's their quarterback who's now paid. Brandon Ayuk is paid and just got injured. Deebo Samuel is looking older and older. George Kittle's getting older. Christian McCaffrey just had his most injury-prone year in a long time and is much older. That's your team, right? Are you now going to say, I'm Kyle Shanahan, all I need is Jawan Jennings? Like, no. You kind of were really good when you had all these freaking weapons, and the defense was really good. Guess what? The Niners were extremely mediocre this year. So if Kyle Shanahan sees that writing on the wall, maybe, just maybe, he's saying, hey, Niners, y'all need some talent. Take this pick. Get me out of here. You'll save some money on me. You'll be fine. All my coordinators that I've groomed over the last couple of years, everybody wins. I don't hate it. I think it's crazy, but I don't hate it.
I think it makes a lot of sense for San Fran. And if you're the Jets, like, you got to take a shot. What gives the Jets, and I always say this, like, the objective is to win, and you got to go for it, especially if you're the Jets now, and, like, you've shown you've went for it. You brought in Rodgers, and it hasn't worked, but you traded for Devontae Adams, like, 6 weeks ago. If Rodgers leaves, Devontae Adams is going to leave.
Yeah.
And it did look like Rodgers may have played his last snap yesterday, just based on all the goodbyes and the hugs. But Aaron Rodgers is also the type of guy to say all the goodbyes and make it look like he's retiring, going to a little ayahuasca, get a little high, and then come back and say, I got one more run in me.
It's true. And you know what? To give him a little bit of credit, like, he just came off an ACL. Is there even a remote chance that he's a little bit more mobile next year? I think there is.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
like,
everything that I've read, not to cut you off, but everything that I've read about the ACL injury is like year 2 is typically the year that you're now over mostly like the mental hurdles as well. And on top of that, you're obviously physically healthy. So yeah, year 2 seems like he will be more healthy this year than he was last year. Another year older, but Rodgers has kept himself in good shape. You're talking about, Pete, you're talking about a 4-time MVP and one of the best quarterbacks to ever step in a football field. Is he still an MVP and one of the best quarterbacks? No, I'm not that stupid, but is he better than your alternative? And I hate all these talking heads that go on TV and just love to rip on Aaron Rodgers because it's the new fun thing to do, to make fun of Aaron Rodgers. Who is your alternative? I don't know.
None of the
Aaron
alternatives
Rodgers
are that
is
exciting.
better than your alternative. I mean, what are you going to bring in? Jameis Winston? Justin Fields? Kirk Cousins? Like, what is your alternative? Give me Aaron Rodgers over all those guys.
And frankly, Tyrod Taylor is their backup right now. And as much as
we know what he's done.
Every team that's had Tyrod Taylor, you love him. As soon as he comes in, you're like, this guy's pretty good. Maybe we roll him out there. It's like, no. There's a reason he hasn't been a starter for a while, even if he's had bad luck.
That's it.
I would say he's a great backup. He ain't a great starter. But and also, you look at the Jets at the 7 overall pick, and that's right in range to take the Will Campbell offensive lineman from LSU or Kelvin Banks, the offensive lineman from Texas. Like, yeah, maybe you give Aaron Rodgers one more fresh new lineman. They got obviously receivers that he likes enough, and well, maybe not Garrett Wilson. That's a different conversation. But the options for quarterback are not pretty. And also, I kind of think the coaching options are not pretty. Like you just said, Ben Johnson's like the big hot name on the market from a hot new
Why would
coordinator.
he go to the Jets?
Never would he choose the Jets. Ever. Why would he?
No.
So who is it? Is it Aaron Glenn? Aaron
Told you
Glenn.
who it is.
Well, if it's not Kyle Shanahan for a first round pick, you start looking around the options, and maybe Rex Ryan is actually towards the top 5 or 6 options. I don't know, because Vrabel ain't going. Vrabel's going to New England. Book that thing, right?
Yeah,
Is Aaron Glenn exciting you? Is Joe Brady from Buffalo exciting you? Their offensive coordinator? Is Todd Monken going to leave Baltimore to go to the Jets? No, it doesn't feel good.
Listen, I've put the blueprint out there for the New York Jets. Give up your first round pick, get Sanford's second ballot pick, and then get Kyle Shanahan. I mean, look at Denver. Everyone said Denver was crazy because I believe they gave up 2 first round picks for Sean Payton. Look at the Saints. Look at Denver. Head coaching matters in the NFL. I'll give you a quick little story. See that jersey in the background? That's my buddy, Jason Foley. He's on the Detroit Tigers. He's their closer. He told me the other day that he was at some training in Charlotte, and Greg Olsen, formerly the Panthers tight end, walks in. So they were talking for like 20 minutes or so, said he's a cool dude, and he asked him, how big is coaching in the NFL? Greg Olsen said, it's everything. You can't win without a good coach. And everyone says you can't win without a good quarterback. You also can't win without a good head coach. The Jets have to bring in a good head coach. They've never had one. They've really never had a good head coach. It's time to make a splash. You may as well go out swinging if you're Woody.
Yeah, wow, I love it. And the Woody part of it all comes into fruition here too. It's like this guy just feels like he's ready to do something rash. So let me ask you this question. Not what Mike Didino thinks they should do. What does Mike Didino think that Woody Johnson is going to do? Because those are 2 vastly different questions.
I think they're going to make a big splash. I think they have to. I mean, could you Ben Johnson is probably the hottest coordinator name. He's not coming there. Cancel that. Just think the top 3 hot coordinators are probably not going to go to the Jets. And there's not a ton of jobs available. I mean, really, you got the page. Jacksonville seems a bit more traffic than the Jets just because you have Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Chicago seems a little more attractive because you still have the quarterback in place and you do have talent around him. And right there, the coordinators are going to choose those 2 teams over the Jets. And we don't know who else is going to lose their job before these coaches make the decision. It looks like it's not going to be many teams.
Right.
But the 2 top coordinators, including Vrabel, if you want to say Vrabel, the 3 top available options are most likely going to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New England Patriots, and the Chicago Bears. And if I'm the Jets, I'm looking to make a splash. And I think they will make it. I really do think they're going to try to make a splash, maybe make a trade, maybe knock on Gruden's door. And if they don't, then, I mean, you're going to get rid of Rodgers. You're going to bring in a new guy and bring in his team, bring in his quarterback, and you're going to be bad again next year.
What do you make of Rex Ryan saying that Aaron Rodgers got to not go to the country club anymore? If I'm the coach, Aaron Rodgers doesn't get to do whatever he wants anymore. That probably means Nathaniel Hackett's gone and there's a new offensive coordinator in the building. So what do you make of Rex saying stuff like that? Is that at least a positive in your eyes?
Well, Nathaniel Hackett, they took him off offensive coordinator duties a week or 2 after Sal, so they're going to replace him as well, and he'll be in the building because he's friends with Rodgers. Rex Ryan is a fat slob, and he's doing anything that he can for clicks, and he's doing anything he can to get some buzz around his name because he wants to be the Jets coach so bad. He's got nothing else to do. He's done nothing for the last 10 years but just spew I don't know if we curse in here, spew nonsense out of his mouth on the Sunday morning show, and he's ready to coach. The problem is, Rex, you're not a good coach, and you're not going to get the Jets job. And if he do get the Jets job, I'm going to be angry.
What I would be afraid of as a Jets fan is that Rex Ryan knows which buttons to push with Woody Johnson. He's been around Woody, so he knows him, and I think he might know which buttons to push, which to me is just not a good thing for Jets fans.
Go ahead, bring in Rex, go get rid of Rodgers, go bring in some backup quarterback and go win 5 games. And, it's just you have to make a big change if you're the Jets front office this year. You have to. You've been so bad for so long. And, you have talent in that locker room. We don't need to go through, we know the Jets have talent. I always say, man, it starts at the top. It starts at the top. And when your owner is asking his son about players on Madden and making decisions based on that, that's a problem. Sorry, that might be a problem.
Also, the Jets have to find their general manager. We didn't even touch that topic, and that's a
Yeah.
whole other thing. That's almost just as important in a lot of ways too.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
goddamn, they're seemingly in a tougher spot than the Giants, and the Giants are in an incredibly tough spot. So, New York football looking like another year of disaster. I don't even know if that's a word, but it gets the point across. All right, that's enough on the Jets. Let's talk about some actual positive stuff when it comes to the NFL. Some actual good product when it comes to football, and that is the NFL playoffs. Pete Kennedy and Mike Didino. You can find Mike on all the social medias. Look up Mike Didino. Mike Didino _ is that all socials or is that just TikTok?
I don't even know, honestly. I think it's
There you go. You'll find
different.
them.
Yeah, I think TikTok and Twitter are different. And Instagram, I don't even know at this point.
Yeah, you'll find him. You'll look up
Yeah,
Mike
yeah.
Didino. There we go.
Or you won't find me, and you won't be missing much.
Unless you're on a little streak on your picks on your pick a day on your
Don't
TikTok
jinx
right
it.
now. 4-2. No such thing as
It's tough,
jinxes.
man.
No such
I
thing.
gotta say, man, picking one pick per day is very, very difficult. And my process, and I'll just explain it quickly what I do. I screenshot every single NBA, NHL, NCAA, NFL, and NCAA line when they get released. And I'm big on tracking line movement. And essentially, like, I will track line movement throughout the week, see where the public is betting. Man, it's like a part-time job to get, like, 0 impressions and 0 likes. But Rome wasn't built in a day, man. I've always said, like, I feel like I could be around that 60%, which technically is, like, handicapper-ish. So I'm trying it.
There you
Not
go.
sure if I'm going to do it, but 4-2, feeling good.
4-2 to start. We like it. We like it a lot. Much better than my NFL picks this year. I think I'm 7 games under 500. I don't want
It's
to talk
hard,
about
man. It's
I don't
hard.
wanna talk
Like,
about
if
it.
you're just going to go there and watch football and say, hey, if you're going to go based on eye test, you're going
it.
to probably lose.
Impossible. It's impossible.
So it's all really in, like, the analytics and the EV. I don't know if you know anything about EV, positive
yeah.
plays. Like, it's all that stuff. So it's tough, man. It's really tough. It ain't for the weak.
100%. 100%. All right, let's talk about the NFL at large, and that's talking playoff picture and whatnot. So why don't we get into it with the best of the best at first? Right now, I'll go over the odds of the top dogs, and then we'll hit some of the lower odds, the underdogs, if you will. So the biggest favorite is the Detroit Lions at plus 280 to win the Super Bowl, Chiefs plus 350, Ravens plus 600, Bills plus 650, and Eagles plus 700. After that, a pretty big jump to the rest of the teams we'll get into. Is there a favorite matchup for you? Is there a favorite team that you like winning the Super Bowl? You can take this however you want. Conference first, Super Bowl winner first. I don't really care. But of those favorites, who stands out to you as the team you trust the most?
I like if I'm betting, if I was a betting man, which I may or may not be,
Which I may be.
I would take 1 unit on the Buffalo Bills to win and 1 unit on the Baltimore Ravens to win. I think that only 3 teams in the AFC have any sort of shot of winning. Maybe the Chargers would be the dark horse. And I like fading the Chiefs this year. I just think, albeit they win 15-1, and until somebody beats them, it's like, tough to bet against them. But I think that on paper, Buffalo and Baltimore are better than Kansas City this year. And I can't decide which one it is. So I would take both of them. I like the Lions in the NFC, but I also could see the Lions getting upset by maybe a Green Bay, by maybe a Philly. Dare I say Tampa Bay, who's already beat them this year. Everyone likes the Lions, and they're the fun story, and I would pick them to win the NFC. But I think the NFC would be your shot to take a dark horse. While in the AFC, I don't really see any way that one of these top 3 teams don't come out.
So the way the bracket sits right now, Lions and Chiefs have byes. Texans play the Chargers. Ravens play the Steelers. Bills play the Broncos in the AFC. And the NFC side, Rams, Vikings, Buccaneers, Commanders, Eagles, and Packers. I like your process there, Mike, because if you're looking at the Chiefs right now, which I'm in agreement with you, that magic seems like it has to run out at some point. And I think it's more likely to run out in the AFC playoffs, not in the Super Bowl. To me, it's almost like if the Chiefs get to the Super Bowl, I'm taking them because they get 2 weeks off to get Travis Kelce as healthy as possible, Andy Reid to do his thing. They've been there, done that, and they're going to figure out a way. But I do think the Bills or the Ravens are most likely to take them down. And the way it looks now is that they're most likely going to be playing each other like in the second round, right? So actually, no matter what, if they both win, they're playing each other in the second round. So they get to play each other, and the winner of that is kind of how you can pick who's going to beat the Chiefs in a way. There's probably a way for you to bet that week to week without just putting the ticket straight up on the Bills or Ravens to win it all. But I love your process there.
Well, the NFL does reseed, and I don't have the bracket in front of me, but is that
I
true?
do.
If they both win, because
Yeah.
the NFL reseeds because
'Cause
the Bills are the 2, or the Ravens the 3,
if they both win, yeah, they're 2-3. If they both win,
so they would be in.
It would
and then it
be-
doesn't matter who gets in.
exactly, the Chargers or Texans winner would play the Chiefs no matter what. And obviously, if the Ravens or Bills lost, they lost, so they're not playing each other
And
that
that's
way.
the problem. So you already, if you take one unit on both, you do get a team in the AFC Championship, but you're losing a team.
Right, exactly. But I like those teams a lot. I think on the NFC front, you have some of these sneaky teams. So right now, the Packers are the lowest seeded team in the NFC, but they are the 8th best odds. So middle of the pack for Super Bowl odds. But NFC, they're technically the 7th seed. Jalen Hurts is still in concussion protocol. My guess is that he's going to play football on Sunday or on,
I'd be
on Saturday.
stunned if he doesn't play.
It would be shocking if they don't play. Actually, it is on Sunday. Do the Packers tickle your interest? Because they've been a team since preseason that a lot of people love to make a Super Bowl run. They clearly have juice in them, but they haven't been super consistent. Is that a team that kind of excites you?
I don't know if I love taking a 4-point underdog in the wild card round to make a Super Bowl run. They got a tough road as well. For me, I find more value in teams that I could see winning the wild card round, which I like Tampa in the wild card round to beat Washington. I mean, the spread makes no sense. I think Vegas is begging you to take the Commanders. They're a popular pick. Everyone loves Jaden Daniels. So I feel good that I'm getting, if I take a shot on Tampa, which I wouldn't bet them to win a Super Bowl, maybe I bet them to get to the championship game. I feel good that I'm getting Tampa into the second round. I don't love. I like Philly. Probably would be the second team I would choose to come out of the NFC. But FanDuel knows what they're doing. They're not giving you great odds on anybody outside of Philly or Detroit, and I think those are the two best teams by a significant amount. But it does seem a little more open in the NFC.
Now, did the
I
Vikings?
also can't see a world in which the Tampa Bay gets there. I mean, the Vikings are 1-point favorites. They
Right.
could easily lose.
100%.
I don't love taking a 1-point favorite to make the Super Bowl or to win the Super Bowl.
Right. So that's my next question for you. Did the Vikings loss to the Lions in Week 18 mean extra to you heading into the playoffs, that they can't hang with the best of the best in the NFC?
I mean, the Vikings played awful last night, and it was probably their worst game of the year. And now they're, you could argue, undervalued. I always like betting a team after a bad week, so I
Same.
think the Vikings are a decent spot this week. We'll see where the line closes. I mean, Detroit's the better team, and they're going to play home if they do meet up again. And, it's always tough to beat a team 3 times. I believe, did they split this year?
No, Lions beat them
Detroit
both.
beat them twice. So it's always tough to beat a team 3 times. But Minnesota would be going on the road, and I think Detroit's just one of those America's team this year.
Right.
And, I think they're going to be tough to beat.
Yeah, I don't want to overreact to their loss because everything that could go wrong went wrong, and Sam Darnold just didn't live up to the hype on that Sunday night game. But I think they are deservingly placed where they are. They have the 3rd best odds in the NFC after the Lions and Eagles, right above the Packers. And I think that's fair. But I think the Packers and Vikings are similar teams where they can kind of beat anybody, but they can kind of lose to anybody too. If the Vikings go out and lose to the Rams, you're not going to be shocked. Just like if the Packers beat the Eagles, I don't think I would be blown away if that happens.
The Packers are 4-point favorites. They need to shock the Eagles, who have not lost a game in 3-4 months.
Right.
And then if they win that game, they go to Detroit. They have the toughest road. I don't see any value in Green Bay Super Bowl.
That's
they just have the
probably
toughest
why.
road.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have the toughest road.
And it's crazy to think that in the NFC, the biggest spread is 4. In the AFC, you have the Ravens are 10-point favorites on the Steelers, and the
That's
Bills
how
are
much better the
8.5.
Bills and Ravens. That's what I said. The AFC has 3 really, really good teams, and Chargers are a cute pick. They would be the one pick if you were to go somebody outside of the big 3, but I don't see them. It's just such a difficult road. If you're the Chargers, you'd have to win, then you'd have to beat Kansas City, then you'd have to beat Buffalo or Baltimore, and then you'd have to win the Super Bowl. It's the same thing with the Packers. You'd have to beat Philly, then you'd have to beat Detroit, then you'd have to win another game to get to the Super Bowl just to beat either Kansas City, Baltimore, or Buffalo. To me,
Brutal.
odds ain't there for Green Bay.
I could not agree more. So
I kind of sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
To even one-up my action of earlier, I kind of like taking the Ravens and the Bills to beat the Lions in the Super Bowl. Then you get that jacked up to 15, 16 to 1. I don't hate taking a unit on both of those, but I just never hit these like 15-1. So
Yeah,
I
well,
got no
I would
chance.
say this: if you want to get really frisky with it, I think this is a fun way to bet this. If you, like you said, you love the Ravens and you love the Bills to get there, you can kind of take the Ravens versus Lions as the finalist. Not like who's going to win, just Ravens to play the Lions plus 700 or Bills to play Lions plus
And
750.
I looked at that, and you pretty much have the same odds as if you picked them outright to win. So now you're kind of hoping
But you don't
Detroit
have to
gets
pick the
there.
winner, though. You don't have
No,
to pick
you
the
don't.
winner.
But
You know
yeah,
what I mean? So
yeah,
it's
I always
similar.
hate to say it. Yeah, but then you could always hedge if you get there. Like if you're a smart bettor and you put what's called 100 to win 700. You could also put 100 on the other team if either team got to the Super Bowl, and then you get a free bet. So you could always hedge, but I see where you're coming from. Then you got to also root for Detroit not to get upset to
True.
get to the Super Bowl. So
The
I
Lions
was looking
are
at that.
almost, they're almost even odds to make the Super Bowl, which is crazy. They're plus
They're probably going to
115
make it. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I didn't realize they were plus 115.
just to make
I
the Super
mean,
Bowl.
the NFC's kind of weak, man.
Yeah. No,
it
it is.
seems like there's because if anyone beats Detroit, there's like good odds there to get. And like, is Detroit unbeatable? I think so.
I think it's weird because the NFC is a little bit more balanced, but it's the top is weaker, right? They don't have a big three, but there's not as like the Packers are better than I think the Steelers and the Broncos.
The Steelers are
I think
atrocious.
I think the Packers are better than the Steelers, Broncos, Texans, and possibly Chargers. Honestly,
Which
They-
isn't saying that much.
no, it's not. But it's saying that the lowest seed in the NFC is better than
That's fair.
all of the other seeds outside of the top three.
You could
in the
also
AFC.
argue the three best teams are in the AFC.
True, exactly. All right, so let's do this game quick, and then we'll make some final thoughts and get out of here. If you had to pick a team, let's call it a $5 fun guy, right? Plus 1,600 is the lowest odds on this front. Vikings plus 1,600, Packers plus 2,000, Buccaneers 2,500, Chargers 28, Commanders 4,500, another big jump there. Rams 45, Broncos 65, Texans 8,000, and Steelers 9,000. Is there a $5 fun guy that you would just throw on there because like you're kind of rooting for them, you think they're frisky, and you'd be fine to see that ticket die if it does?
Not to be that guy, but you have a better.
Be that
You
guy.
might as well take that $5, walk outside of your apartment, put it in the street, and then walk back in your apartment. Because I just don't see any of those teams having like a real shot. If you put a gun to my head and I had to pick one, I mean, like the Chargers feel like they can make a run, but their path is going to be so difficult. I guess Tampa Bay, because I think they're going to beat the Commanders, and then maybe you can get an upset with like Green Bay beating Philly, and then you could play the Vikings or the Rams in the second round, and like the path at least seems a little easier that you might not have to play one of the top teams in the AFC until the championship game. I guess Tampa Bay, but man, I really don't like any of the, like, I'll take your bet. You want to put a $5 bet? I'll take it. I'll be the bank.
I'll take you 5.
I'll take everyone's 5. Everybody could drop 5s.
Mike Didino says, do sleep on the sleepers. Like, just go to sleep right now on the sleepers. They don't got a
You
shot.
might as well take your money, go to your toilet, put it in the toilet, and flush it because I think that's what you're doing.
You're dead ass. You're better taking a like first touchdown scorer $5 parlay to win like $100,000 on every first round game.
I mean, like,
Honestly,
based on the odds, like, I think you, what did you say Tampa Bay was?
2,600 was it?
Like, I think you have a
2,500.
much better chance of hitting a 25-1 parlay on props and game spreads and touchdown scores than Tampa Bay winning the Super Bowl. Like, much better.
Yeah, if I were gonna do that, I would almost just say, screw it. I'm putting $5 on the Rams at plus 4,500 because I don't
and
think
the Rams got no shot.
they got no shot.
And-
But I don't think they have much worse of a shot than some of the other
No,
teams
they
that are plus
don't.
2,500. Like,
Well, the Rams seem like that sexy pick, obviously, because they've won one, right?
Stafford.
So I think, like, you know, the public will be saying, oh, they won one. They have Stafford. They have McVay. I'm not betting. I mean, you know, I could see it from all the teams, but I'll take your bet.
I'll take you bet. All right. Well, I didn't make a pick yet, so I might as well make my pick, and then we'll let you lock in. You said Bills and Ravens. 1 unit apiece is your pick, right?
That's how I would do it. I would go 1 unit on the Bills and 1 unit on the Ravens. And actually, after you told me Detroit's plus 115, I might just do the matchups.
Yeah, because then you're getting plus 700 odds on both of those instead of 600 and 650.
Yeah.
It's basically parlaying two different things there. But then, like you said, you can bet against the
Detroit?
Lions. You can bet against them in the conference championship and maybe hedge back some of your money there. As the other team, Ravens or Bills, would play the Chiefs in theory. I think I said this probably like 6 weeks ago. Somebody asked me who's your Super Bowl winner, and I'm like, I think this team is the most talented defensive team. I think their offense is figuring it out. Their coach drives me nuts, but I just think they're the most talented team. I'm going to say the Eagles at plus 700. They're my pick. I hate it. I think the AFC beats each other up. I'm dying for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens to win a Super Bowl. Desperate to see that, but I just think their path is so difficult that I like the Eagles better. I think Eagles at plus 700 is my pick. So that's what I'm going for.
Don't hate it. I just don't. I just find it much easier to. I think you have much easier find a 7-1 parlay. You'll be able to hit that much easier than Philly winning the Super Bowl. But Philly would be my fourth. Philly's what, a consensus fifth best team in the NFL, second best team in the NFC, I would say.
Yeah.
So you need your boy Hurts to be healthy, or you could have an early exit.
Early. It's very contingent on that front, right? Like if Hurts gets announced as healthy, is that odd jump at all? I don't know. Maybe it does. But
I believe, what is it now? Because it was 5.5.
It's seemingly, I think it's 4 right now. So
I don't know if you're looking on ESPN or you're looking on FanDuel.
I'm looking on DraftKings right now.
Yeah, I would guess that the line was
4.5.
adjusted. Yeah, I would guess the line moved a point. I think it opened at like 4 or 4.5, and then went to 5 and 5.5, and then I think the Hurts news came out, probably went back down. I would bet a lot of money that Hurts plays. Now the concussion, that could be a little tricky because like you either are passing the test or not passing the test. It's pretty black and white. So if he's not passing the protocol, he's not going to play.
Who's that guy on the sideline for the Eagles? Who's that guy?
Big something.
Big. I was about to say Big Sean. That's a different big guy.
Yeah.
Big Sean's not very big, but big. Whatever. We know who we're talking about. If Jalen Hurts' concussion test comes back a little bit, I don't know. Whatever. Big Don? Is that it? Nah, that doesn't sound right.
No, it does sound right.
It's Big Dom. Big Dom.
Yeah, D did sound right.
I think Big Dom walks into the medical tent. He says, "Hey, listen, we don't want any problems over here. I think Jalen Hurts just actually cleared his test."
He's gonna, and if you want to go home to your kids tonight, you want to go home to your wife tonight. I will say I watched that whole Giants game yesterday because I did have it as my pick of the day, a teaser. I watched that whole Giants game.
Sorry.
Tanner McKee was balling.
Yeah. Tanner McKee, the next Nick
pretty
Foles.
Good.
He did.
I think if you asked all Philly fans right now that watched that game yesterday, they would say that Tanner McKee is a better backup quarterback than
Kenny Pickett.
I don't know why I was drawing a blank on his name. I think the majority of Eagle fans would say that right now.
That's good. Oh man, I love it. That's it. I don't know if there's anything else you want to throw out from a prop perspective. Is there any game that you just love? So right now, look a headline right now on the.
My favorite line right now is Tampa Bay -3.
Tampa Bay -3.
I think the books are begging you to take Jaden Daniels and the Commanders as dogs. Begging you.
How hard is the books begging you to parlay together? Like, if you parlay the Ravens, Bills, and say the Eagles as the next big favorite there, you're getting plus 120 odds. Bills, Ravens, Eagles. That's plus 120 money line parlay. Someone's got to lose from that. That's too easy, right? Just assuming that Jalen Hurts is playing, obviously.
I mean, obviously, I don't hate it. Like, I think all three teams will win. I'm never in the camp of taking three teams to win and getting plus 120 odds. Like, that's not getting me out of bed. But the Ravens should win, the Bills should win, and the Eagles should win. It's that simple.
It's the how could it lose parlay. One of the favorites of our buddy Mark.
I mean, if Jalen Hurts is playing, how could you can make an argument for Green Bay, but how can Lamar or Josh Allen lose in the first round? I think a lot of people are going to pick Denver too, with the points off of thrashing against the big bad backups that Kansas City was playing.
Yeah, unbelievable. People have amnesia in this league, bro. People really do. They forget everything that happens every week before, every year before, and do not ever learn from mistakes.
It does seem like they're like a team that would be like, if you would tell me the Ravens or the Bills would lose, I would say that the Bills would lose over the Ravens.
Are you afraid at all of Lamar Jackson's seemingly, wonky playoff record? Are you somebody who's a doubter on the Lamar playoff front?
The problem with Lamar, and I've said this for many years, and he's proved me wrong so many times, because when he came into the NFL, I was not that I was saying anything bold, but his ceiling's Michael Vick. he can't throw and he could run. And then he showed that he can throw, and you gave him a great coach, and he's like arguably the best athlete in the NFL on top of being a great quarterback. The only problem that Lamar is when they fall behind and he has to make the throw, and you can game plan more so around the throw. Like, can he make that throw playing from behind? I still don't know. I want to see Lamar win one. I'm not going to really lose sleep over it either way. I'm not really buying that he's not a good playoff quarterback, though. Like, they lost to Kansas City in a tough game last year. So, not buying that narrative yet.
Yeah, a lot of people want
to. It's hard to win. The only person that's winning is Patrick Mahomes. Nobody else is winning.
And that's why people give Joe Burrow a pass, because he beat Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game once and didn't even win the Super Bowl.
He's the only person to really do it, him and Brady.
Yeah, and Stafford won a Super Bowl. He didn't even have to beat Mahomes. So it's kind of
no.
It's a little weird thing. That's what I also get mad with people. Oh, the quarterbacks who win the Super Bowls are the only ones that matter. Everyone else is a fraud. I'm like, bro, then every quarterback's in the league a fraud? Then the only not fraud quarterbacks, and I'm not counting Russell Wilson, his day is gone, obviously, is the only not fraud quarterback is Patrick Mahomes and Matt Stafford. That's it? And by your estimation? I don't like your estimation then. Anyways, all right, Mike Didino, good stuff. Appreciate you as always. This is Subway Sports Talk. We talked a lot of Giants and Jets. We talked some NFL playoff previews. Exciting stuff. We'll have picks on Subway Sports Talk later in the week. Thank you all for tuning in. Follow us on socials at Subway Sports Talk. Myself at Pete Kennedy. Mike Didino, Mike Didino _ on TikTok for sure. Didn't confirm the Twitter, but you'll find it. We'll tweet it out with the podcast tomorrow as well. That's all we got. Mike, thank you, and cheers.
Cheers.